Hey, thanks very much, Jen. I am so excited to be here at Frontend Nation today. As mentioned just a moment ago, my name is Daniel Kelly. I am the lead instructor at Vue School. Before I joined the Vue School team, though, I was a full stack developer. I worked with PHP and Laravel on the back end, and of course Vue.js on the front end, right? So I was in the weeds, like a lot of y'all were, in the code and having fun. So hi, uh, just glad to be here with everyone and super excited to have you here. For my talk today, I want to start by telling you a little bit about this fast food restaurant that we have in America, maybe other places as well. I don't know, but it's called Arby's. And Arby's has this really kind of weird tagline. Their tagline is "We've got the meats." All right, and they say it like this. They're like, "We've got the meats," and it's a lot of fun. Like it's this catchy tagline. And what they mean by this is that they have a menu that's a little bit different than some of the other typical fast food restaurants that you see in America. A lot of times you go to fast food, you're getting a burger or you're getting a chicken sandwich. But Arby's menu is different. Their main thing on the menu is a roast beef sandwich, and they have a variety of other kind of cold cut meats as well as some warm stuff that just isn't very common to fast food restaurants. And so, as I was thinking about Arby's, because I was hungry, and my talk, I thought the game changer your new projects deserve really wasn't the best talk name. A better talk name really might be Vue and Nuxt. We've got the meats. And what I mean by that is Vue and Nuxt really have a lot going on for them. They've got a lot of great things happening that either are unique to them as frameworks or they're not necessarily unique. A lot of the other frameworks have them too, but people just don't realize that Vue and Nuxt do these things. And so today, that's really what I wanted to focus on at a high level. I want to talk about some of the amazing things about Vue core and about the Vue community at large that make creating with Vue.js and Nuxt just a pleasure. Okay, so first of all, how do I know that Vue has the meats? Well, number one, I work with it day in and day out, and I enjoy it. But number two, I'm not the only one who uses Vue. Okay, so Vue is actually used worldwide by a ton of successful companies. You might be familiar with Netflix. I don't know. But they've actually used Vue, believe it or not. Now, it's just for some internal tooling at Netflix, but they do use it. Now, if you have ever gone and found work on Upwork, you've actually interacted directly with a Vue application. Their entire website, their entire web app is created with Vue. Even Vue is being used by NASA, which is the United States Space Agency. So it's powering flight software that takes people literally out of this atmosphere, which is pretty cool. And a lot of other really big, widely known companies that use Vue.js every day very successfully. Okay. And by the way, I thought it was kind of convenient. Arby's on their careers page actually uses Vue as well. But why? So why are people choosing to use Vue.js? And why did I choose to pick it up so many years ago? Well, because Vue really has a lot of great things going on. And the number one thing that you'll hear time and time again is that Vue, the core library, is simply easy to learn. Okay, this was exactly my experience when I picked up Vue. I was trying to learn React at the time. It wasn't clicking, it wasn't making sense for me. And so I decided, hey, I've heard about this other one called Vue, and I picked it up and it just clicked immediately. Now, I'm not saying anything about React. A lot of people pick up React just fine. It's not a problem. There's a framework for everyone, right? It's about finding the one that fits you. All I'm saying is that if you're having trouble learning an alternate framework, maybe it's time to give Vue a try because a lot of people do say it's pretty simple to pick up. But even though it's simple to learn, it doesn't mean it's simple in functionality. Vue actually has a lot of robust functionality built in and allows you to build really complex projects. I've used it to create software that helps manage jobs for tons of different companies. across the trucking and construction spaces in a job I worked at previously. And all of these other companies that we've just talked about obviously have used it very successfully for large scale applications. Okay. Also, at this point in time, Vue is really a stable and proven framework. In the JavaScript ecosystem, this is really a big deal, right? Because I don't know about you, sometimes I get jaded with how fast JavaScript moves, but Vue at this point is 10 years old. Um, and it's kind of really landed in a nice solid space where not a whole lot has changed in the past year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, they've added, a few small new features, but nothing that breaks things to where I have to completely rewrite my apps or learn something completely new, right? At least within the past couple years, we've really landed in this nice stable place with Vue core. But Vue is still pushing the boundaries with new features like vapor mode. So vapor mode is a compilation strategy inspired by Svelte, and it allows us to create apps that run faster. It eliminates the virtual DOM, but the key here is that it doesn't change what we write. It's still the same APIs we're used to using with Vue. So I really like that Vue core now is in this really stable place that I can trust it and that I can use it day in and day out without thinking, oh, what am I going to have to change next year? Okay, so Vue core is easy to learn and it's a stable and proven framework. But the benefit of Vue doesn't stop there. The Vue ecosystem from where I sit is absolutely on fire. Let me tell you a little bit about some of the most exciting things in it. Number one is just this huge repository, this huge collection of really quality UI libraries that are out there for Vue. So in Nuxt UI, it's actually built to be the UI framework of choice when you're building a Nuxt app. It's literally created by the Nuxt core team. What more could you ask for than something created by the people who create the framework itself? Okay, there's also this really cool Prime Vue logo here, which their logo is absolutely amazing. I think we can all agree on that. But their UI library is actually really nice as well. I've heard a ton of good things about it. There's also other ones like Vuetify, ShadCN Vue, Quasar, and more. By the way, some of these are perfect to use with Tailwind CSS. Wink, wink. I know some of you out there are looking for that. Okay, these are just a few screenshots of some little sample apps built with my favorite out of these UI libraries, ShadCN. Okay, ShadCN actually takes a really unique approach to UI components. They kind of copy the components into your actual source code as opposed to them being a dependency. And it's kind of like a copy and paste boilerplate that you are supposed to alter to fit your needs. It's a unique strategy that's really nice. Okay, so do you need to make mobile apps? Well, Vue can actually do that too. Quasar that I just mentioned a moment ago is more than just a UI library. It's also good for creating mobile apps, desktop apps, and browser extensions besides your traditional SPAs and server-side rendered websites. It can also handle PWAs as well. Their DevRel guy, Luke DeBold, is an amazing teacher, and it gives a lot of support for building with Quasar. So I definitely suggest you check this out if you are looking to build a mobile or desktop app and you like Vue.js. Do you need to make API requests in your app? Duh. Of course you do, right? Well, there's some really good tooling in the Vue ecosystem for that as well. TanStack Query, which is very popular in the React ecosystem, also works for Vue.js, and it has just a ton of different features available. This is literally a copy and paste of all the features from their website. But let me highlight just a couple here that I think are most important. That is things like auto caching. This means that you can use the same exact syntax to request data from your backend, and then use that same exact syntax again to request data from your backend. But the second time around, you won't actually make the round trip to the server. You'll get it from the cache. So this eliminates a decent amount of need for global state management. Not all of it, of course, but some of it. So this caching mechanism is really, really handy, and it has a lot of intuitive ways of busting that cache when it's necessary to do so. You also have window focus refetching, which is pretty cool. Like if a user ever steps away from the app and then comes back later, by focusing the window, it automatically triggers a refresh of the data fetched by TanStack query. It's a really handy automatic thing that just works. You also have support for scroll recovery. We've done a lot in the JavaScript world to break browser native behavior, but in the name of user experience a lot of times, right? But scroll recovery is one of those things that can be hard to get right. That is returning to a page and ending up at the exact point in that page where the user last left off. So this works with dynamic data and TanStack query. Also, offline support. We're already caching that data. Why not show it to the user when they're offline, tell them it's stale, but show them the best last thing we had. Okay, do you need to interact with browser APIs for your web apps? My bet is you probably do. Well, Evan mentioned this yesterday, but what's really nice about the Vue ecosystem at this point in time, we've all kind of coalesced around this Vue library, and we all just kind of know, hey, this is the number one source for composables, especially composables that help you interact with browser APIs. So it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? And it's a standard that we can all come around and just easily jump from project to project with and know how to use. Okay, so it has composables for working with things like geolocation, infinite scroll, seeing if the user is online, they have a network connection or not, using the favicon, using web notifications, just a ton of various composables there. And here is one example of the use local storage composable from Vue use. I like to use this one because it demos really well, right? So all you do is you call use local storage. That comes from the Vue use package, of course. You give it a key, okay? So you give it some key that you're going to store this data in local storage with, and then you give it a value. The result of that is a message variable, which is just a normal reactive ref. Okay, so now you get to interact with this reactive ref just like you always have with any normal reactive ref, except with the side effect that the value will always sync to local storage if it's changed, and vice versa. If local storage is changed, the value of the variable will change. So this is just one good example of Vue use. Okay, do you need to add robust form functionality to your apps? Are you accepting user input via forms? Well, I hope you are. If you're not, you probably might want to consider your use of a front-end framework. If you're just doing static read-only data, you might need a better solution. Okay, but FormKit for accepting that user input is super easy to do. There's just a single component that FormKit exposes, and you can handle all of your various input types just by changing out the type property. So that's text, email, password, but also select, text area, and a lot of other input types that typically you would have to create brand new elements for. They all share, all of your inputs share this one simple interface. Plus, you get a lot of props that support features that just aren't possible with regular browser inputs, things like icons and validation rules that show up on the fly in real time as people are typing in the input. Okay, it also ships with some really common use case rules, a large set of them actually. And you can either use these rules that ship with FormKit, or you can even add a FormKit plugin in to help validate your forms with Zod if that's something you're already familiar with and like using. In fact, on Friday, I'm doing a Forge Day exercise. So the very last day of this event, we're going to learn together how to create a Zod validation, as a Zod schema, and use that to validate a form on the client side with FormKit in real time, but then use that same exact validation schema on the back end to protect an API endpoint to make sure it's receiving the proper data. Okay, so join me for that if you are interested. One other neat little feature about FormKit is the smart submission states. Notice that as soon as you submit the form, it does automatically create a loading indicator and disables the button for you. This is just one good example of the little things that FormKit does to make working with forms a whole lot easier. All right, so let's talk about Nuxt very quickly. By the way, Jen, I think I'm watching my time decently here, but if I start going over, feel free to jump in. So let's talk about Nuxt real quickly. Just a couple features that I want to point out. There's no way I can go over all the goodies. So feature number one that really excites me is the end-to-end type safety that it provides out of the box. What do I mean by that? Well, here I've created an API endpoint. It lives under server API, hello world, and all I'm doing is returning some static data. In a real life app, this would probably be something fetched from your database or something like that, right? But here I'm just returning an object with a message key and a hello world value. Well, when I go to make a request to that API endpoint on my front end, notice that first of all, the API endpoint path is actually type safe for me. It's auto completed whenever I use the built-in use fetch function from Nuxt. So this prevents me from creating a typo. But more importantly, the data from the data in the response is automatically typed. Notice that we have this object with the key of message and it's a string. So this is what I mean by end-to-end type safety. I can know what the shape of my data coming from my API endpoints are in my front-end code. And I don't have to store it up here. My IDE is keeping up with that for me. Awesome. By the way, notice you can also add a suffix onto your API endpoints to determine what request methods they support. Here, we're only supporting a get method. And if I try in my front end to make any other type of request, like a post method, I get the red squiggly line and I get the TypeScript error. Type post is not assignable to type get. Awesome. So type safety just all over the place in Nuxt to help us do less thinking and let the IDE do more work. Okay. The other option or the other feature of Nuxt that really excites me is just the huge number of rendering options that are available. It's literally insane. So what do I mean by that? Well, number one, you can generate pages on demand with server-side rendering. So this is a page that is generated. This is code that runs on the server at the time of the request. This is the traditional thing that Nuxt, the traditional benefit that Nuxt provided over and atop of what Vue, just plain Vue provided, right? But you can also statically generate all of your pages at build time. So in this case, we've got code running during a build step and served as static HTML from a CDN at request time, making it super, super snappy. This is the kind of thing that you would typically do on a hosting service like Netlify, right? But you could also render your Nuxt apps completely in the client. So like a traditional Vue SPA. This is where things go next level, though. You don't have to make this decision at the app level. You can make this decision for each individual route. So I could, for instance, pre-render, build my entire homepage at build time, but only do that for the homepage. And then for all of my blog pages, I can render those at request time and then even have a nice little cache for users coming after the initial user so that they still get a snappy response. And then maybe I could have my admin area completely be rendered on the client side because I don't care about SEO at all. Okay, so this is the really cool thing about those rendering modes. You don't have to commit to one at the app level. You can commit to them at the page level, but then Nuxt even takes it one step further and allows you to make this decision at the component level. This is huge. You can decide at the component level, do I want to render this on the server or on the client? That's done with a simple suffix right before the file extension name. So for this component, it will only ever be rendered in the client because it has the .client suffix. For this component, it will only ever be rendered on the server because it has the .server suffix. And in this case, it's extremely useful because we're doing something with Markdown, which is usually takes quite a bit of JavaScript to do. If you were to ship all that JavaScript to the browser, you're hurting performance. But if we just run it on the server, yeah, we're gold. All right, so to end my talk today, we are going to have a super fast Vue crash course for all the beginners in the room. I think we've had a lot of goodies for those who are more experienced with Vue, but if you've never touched Vue before and want to get started because of some of the cool goodies you've seen today, I want to give you just a small taste of what it feels like to build with Vue. So here we go, super fast in the last 5 minutes in the talk. Here's a Vue crash course. All right, so single file components in Vue.js are the way you're going to do everything. They consist of a script section where you store your state and your logic. They have a template section where you determine what will be displayed to the page, your markup. And then they have a style section where you style that markup. Then creating reactive state in Vue is dead simple. All you have to do is define a regular old JavaScript variable and then set it equal to a reactive ref. A reactive ref is just this function right here. It's imported from the Vue core library, and then you provide it some value, any value, string, Boolean, object, doesn't matter. Okay? Then whenever you change the value of that reactive ref, the template, the page will automatically re-render. So if I were to change message.value here from hello world to hello Frontend Nation, this is the result of that. After 1 second, it just automatically changes, right? Also, it's so easy to have this interactivity react to user input. Here I have an input. We have that same piece of reactive data, that reactive state here called message, and we just used a vModel directive to bind it to this input. Whenever it changes in the input, then it will change on the page, wherever it's used, okay? Wherever that variable is used. We also have computed properties, which allow us to easily define data derived from other reactive data. So let's say I have a list of reactive users. They each have some kind of vote. If I wanted to determine the top 3 users, well, I could use a computed prop, something like this, to grab just the top 3. The beauty of this is that, number 1, it's automatically cached. So if I call top 3 users in my template 4 times, but users it never changes, then my callback function here for the computed property of top 3 users only ever runs once, right? So it's very performant. And whenever users changes, top 3 users automatically updates. So I don't have to kind of worry about triggering these things one off the other. Nice. Another thing you can do in your templates is use v-for to display lists extremely easily. Here's an array, and here we loop over that array with a v-for to display a Pokemon card for each of the Pokemon in the array. You can handle conditionals super easy with v-if. The v-if is just applied to an element. Whenever the value of the v-if is truthy, then the element will be rendered. When the value is falsy, the element won't be rendered. Easy as that. And then finally, of course, we do have flexible and easy components for logic, display, and reuse. So these single file components that we've been working in this entire time, of course, can be reused over and over again in the page. So if you created a component with some count state and a button to increment that count state, the classic hello world of front-end frameworks, right? Then you could easily use that component over and over again in order to build out your app. Awesome. So this is just a small taste of what the Vue API can do and a little bit of a taste of what you get when you opt into the Vue.js ecosystem. I hope you enjoyed the talk. That is all for me. Before I go, let me quickly just mention 2 things to you. the Vue.js certification is something I'm heavily involved in and am passionate about. If you are a Vue.js developer and you're looking to prove your Vue.js skills, I highly recommend this product, right? It'll help you not only increase confidence in yourself and your own skills, but give you a solid way to increase that confidence in potential employers of your skills as well. Also, our Vue.js masterclass, we've just released a new edition of that. It uses a lot of the technologies I talked about in this talk. So if you were interested by any of the things that you've heard today, definitely check out the Vue.js Masterclass 2024 edition. Thank you very much. I am Daniel Kelly IO on Twitter, X, whatever. And if you want access to these slides, I will tweet them out after this. Thank you all very much. And go code some awesome things now with Vue.js, of course.
Yay, thank you. We do have questions. So, question number 1. Is Quasar has the ability to use the device sensors?
The device sensors, yes, absolutely.
Very cool. All right. And up next, will the authentication support auth.js? Well, yes. There we go. Well, authentication support auth.js. I don't know why I was reading that one weird.
Yeah, auth.js.dev. I want to say that there is a Nuxt module for this, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I typically reach for Supabase, and so I use their authentication client. But I want to say there is a Nuxt module for that.
Very cool. Thank you. Is it possible to connect a database to the Nuxt API? If so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. So you would just want to set up your database client inside one of your server API endpoints, because I mean you interact with the database on the server, right? You don't interact with the database from the browser. So you would put the API layer in between them. And there's a lot of good ORMs out there for you to actually do that interaction with. So I've used Prisma recently in a project in order to connect to a Postgres database from Nuxt. This is actually what's done in the Mastering Nuxt course as well. And Drizzle ORM, I think a lot of the Nuxt Lab team, whenever they do something, they use Drizzle ORM a lot. So that would be an easy way to do that as well. You would so do your interactions with the database from the API endpoints, and then use fetch and use async data to make requests to those API endpoints on your pages.
Very cool. Thank you. Is it how would you compare or even prefer Tanstack Query or Axios?
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good question. So I think they're extremely different. Axios is really just a tool to make those async requests in terms of just making the HTTP request. Like it's just the HTTP part of it. The Tanstack has a lot of other features layered on top of the actual request part. So it's, yeah, definitely look at the documentation for it, but their Tanstack Query is opinionated in a lot of good ways, and it adds features on top of just the HTTP layer.
Great, thank you. All right. Ooh, I like this next question. Are you on YouTube? If so, what's your YouTube channel? I hope you have beginner tutorials there, like freshman level.
So I work for Vue School. Vue School does have a YouTube channel. We have some educational material there alongside videos from a lot of the conferences we do. We actually just released one of our Vue Essentials courses, or Vue Basics, I can't remember the name exactly, courses on YouTube. So you can definitely find that. But I also teach a lot of the courses that are found on vueschool.io. So if you go to vueschool.io, it is a subscription-based service to watch YouTube or to watch video tutorials, but we also have a lot of free content there as well. So if you can't find it on YouTube, go to vueschool.io and you can find a lot of good resources, both premium and free.
And yes, they are like freshman level. There are
Yes.
from freshman level to advanced. I say that because Daniel's been on my show, Teach Gen Tech, and we did
Have a great.
basic things. So, which has been great. And thank you for that. Let's see. Up next, which I think since you mentioned it, I'm going to skip around a little bit, but what technologies are covered in the Vue.js masterclass?
That's an excellent question. So the goal of this masterclass was really to make it use the latest and greatest tech to build something out quickly. So we, of course, use Pina, the composition API, TypeScript. So those are like kind of the core things, Vite, like all the things you should just be doing in every new Vue app mostly these days, right? But then we also make a lot of opinionated decisions to help us move more quickly. So using things like ShadCN that we just saw in the presentation for our UI layer, using FormKit for our form layer, using Supabase as a backend. So those are probably some of the main technologies. There'll be, of course, other little technologies we use. Vue use, yeah, that was a no-brainer too, is in there quite a bit. Yeah, those are probably the main things.
Follow up on that one, and I think it kind of goes into the other question as well of if someone is taking the Vue.js masterclass, is it like the foundation or for the developer certification, or if so, junior level or senior level? Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely it's a course that starts out fairly simple and it progresses to much more complicated things. So we don't we haven't created it for someone who has never used any Vue before. We would like you to start with our Vue fundamentals course and our Vue components fundamentals course. These are both listed as prerequisites, like on the masterclass page and things like that. But if you know the absolute fundamentals from those two courses, then you can start following along with the Vue.js masterclass because we go into some of the basics of how to set up new pages with Vue Router and things like that. So we do start a little bit more simply, not like from square one, but from like square two or 2.5, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into the more complex as we continue through the course.
Very cool. Let's see. Do you have a Nuxt build present for other CDN platforms apart from Cloudflare?
So yeah, you can deploy Nuxt a ton of different places. Now that's not Nuxt Hub. Nuxt Hub is built for Cloudflare. This is a better question for Sebastian, maybe. But Nuxt Hub is Cloudflare. But if you want to deploy just a regular Nuxt app, like you can use Vercel, you can use Netlify, you can use DigitalOcean. Go on their website, the Nuxt website. There's a ton of different providers you can deploy a Nuxt app to.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That's all the time we have for Q&A. So thank you again for joining us, Daniel, and always doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Jen. I know I feel like I ran that last bit of the talk. I'm almost sweating here a little bit. It's really great to be with everybody.
And follow up because Daniel does post these things on social media and does a lot of the courses. So thank you again, Daniel.